Hey, this is Chadillac, and you're live with the CRP. We're talking Jon Jones again today. My personal perception of this is that innocent until proven guilty, and whether Jones did this or not doesn't change who he is in the cage. However, a lot of people care. I'm here with fight analyst and historian and all-around jack of all trades, Miguel Iterati. Hi, Miguel. What do you think about this one?
Well, we got Jon Jones in trouble again in New Mexico. The news reports are reporting the following details, just to put them up front here, right? Incident in a strip joint back in April. Apparently, he hit a girl or choked a girl, or she claimed she choked him and forced her to sit on his lap and this, that, and the other stuff. So it's basically some type of assault charge in a strip joint. They claim that notification of the paperwork and stuff was delivered to an incorrect address that may or may not be true, or a previous address of Jones, and he didn't know anything about it until he heard about it in the news. And as soon as he heard about it in the news, he went down and paid the bill, for the fines and stuff like that, which, is pocket money for him. So he's not worried about that. But he's got lawyers on it and stuff like that. And he said he doesn't know anything about it. He said he's got witnesses and stuff. They'll tell a different story. And, this could be a little bit of, two things, at the end of the day, Jon Jones is a little bit of a celebrity at this point, right? And, celebrities do attract sometimes this type of problem. And, that could be where this is heading as well. It may be less his fault than somebody maybe just trying to, cash in over some contact with him or whatever. But what alarms me about it is, me, Chad, I'm older now. And I'm a good boy now. I like strip joints. You know what I mean? I have no problem with going to them, especially back in the day. And if you have money like Jones and you're a celebrity and stuff, you're allowed to have your fun. But they are, in this kid's case, they're symptomatic, I think. I think he's still living the lifestyle. I think he still has sort of gotten away without a lot of punishment for some of his crimes and misdemeanors, so to speak. And, the consequences haven't really been there. So he hasn't really changed his actions or his way of behaving as more as he's learned to adapt it, And, this may even, and I know you suspected, this may even translate over to like the steroid question, whether he's still actively using or is he a previous user and stuff like that. If he still feels he can get away with it, then he's still going to keep doing it, And I think that's kind of the bad news. When I saw how he's still going to strip joints, not that that's looking for trouble, you can go to him and not get into trouble every time, right? But, yep. Jones seems to have a magnet for this. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know if his ego's ever really fully taken, the step back it needed.
Yeah, and here's the thing. We're in a different atmosphere today than we were even 5 years ago. 5 years ago, an athlete goes into a strip joint from the NFL, which, by the way, in your NFL contract, it reads, you don't go to, parties unless it's okayed by the NFL. You don't go to strip clubs, period. You don't do that. You don't go hang out at bars. That's in your contract. And, the UFC doesn't have that kind of contract. And I don't know that Jones would necessarily sign it if they did, because at this point they need him more than he needs them, so to speak. He could go elsewhere. He could file for grievances on his contract or whatever and probably get out of some of it and make money doing something else. But like you said, as much trouble as this guy's been in over and over again, at some point you got to kind of go, Jon, no matter what, I'm and then we can get into blaming the victim and that kind of stuff too. So we've got to be careful about that. But first and foremost, let's just address the elephant in the room. Hey, Jon, you're supposed to be the greatest fighter in the world, and you're hanging out at strip clubs. what was Randy Couture doing? He probably hit a club or two, but he was kind of in and out. Like, this sounds like a deal where he'd been there a long time, drinking and partying, and I'm reading into it a little bit, but he's apparently, the story from it was a waitress, is that she walked by him and he grabbed her and pulled her into him and set her on his lap. And then from there, he, I think she said he tried to kiss her. I might have that not quite right. And she refused or said stop or something like that. And she said that he did not. And then he put her in some type of a chokehold. Now, I can imagine this being, waitress walks by, Jones is like, hey, let me get 2 more of those shots, for my buddies and me. And she is standing there and he grabs her and sets her on his lap and, you're blah, blah, blah. And he's obviously got a posse around him. And even if she doesn't know who he is, she knows that he's a man of, some type of wealth. And I can see that side of the story happening. So I'm not automatically blaming him and saying that he's guilty, but he's guilty of just being in a strip club, whether it's legal or not. I don't think we're going to see Henry Cejudo showing up in a strip club after he's been in trouble and been in trouble and been in trouble and been in trouble and been in trouble. This is 5 or 6 times now, and it starts to become more of a character credibility question than anything else. And, I'm not one to examine anyone's character because mine's so fundamentally flawed. But at the same time, I'm also not the greatest fighter in the world, supposedly, with cameras on me everywhere I go and TMZ watching what I do.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the problem right there, is that Jones, at the end of the day, I mean, his brothers are in the NFL. You think he would have had access, and knowledge of high-level athletes and egos and things, but he's a guy that he drank his own Kool-Aid. He really, that you're the best and stuff like that. I really firmly believe he believes that.
I do too.
And you can believe that in a good way, like stay focused and, give me, 3 fights a year for the next 5 years, and that would be in a good way. Or you could, abuse the gift from God, so to speak, and, think you could lead basically 2 different lives, because the bottom line is and you mentioned Couture, you mentioned Cejudo. This is a personality issue. This isn't going to come down to talent, because all those guys get down into the gym. They're in the gym, they're doing their work and stuff. What they do on their own time, that's fine, right? But the point is, those guys never got in trouble.
Right.
Never. Not just like you said, warrant, they never got in trouble. So now you're talking about a character issue, right? And when you get in trouble and you pay consequences, the idea is that that there's an alleviation, that you've also gone through a process of accepting and maybe changing some of the behavior, right? That process hasn't happened in Jon Jones, and
No.
to take it on to a different level, and it may be a level that's familiar to you and to some of our listeners too, but in something like the Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous system, part of it is kill your ego, The egos are damaging. The thinking I can when others can't, or this is okay by me, or I'm going to get away with it because, I'm Jon Jones or stuff like that. So there seems to be some of that allure to the lifestyle that could be likened to an addiction for Jones. You know what I mean? That's the way I see it because,
yeah,
at the end of the day, addictions are so weird. No one knows anything about them. Maybe, a strip joint, it inevitably involves drinking, right? Maybe, the core of it is a good old-fashioned alcohol problem that, you can't really control a little bit. Right? That's just speculation on my part. But gambling is also an addiction, and you're not putting anything in your body. So it goes beyond chemicals at times in that, the thing is in New Mexico is where, you know, the academy is with Greg Jackson and all that stuff. So, you know, he's gotten in trouble. The incident with the pregnant driver that he broke her arm and stuff. That was in New Mexico as well.
That was nasty.
Mexico. So, I mean, he's basically got a second home in New Mexico. So, so he's from there. So, you know, now this is just speculation. We don't know, but what are the details, you know? Does Jones really travel with an entourage? Is he a VIP at the club? Hey, Mr. Jones, right here, we got your seat.
Yeah.
You know, then maybe the waitress would have treated him different, or they would have had a different waitress. Or is he alone, or does he show up alone? Now that'd be, you know, because that he was driving alone when he crashed, and you know, if he's a loner, then that also talks and plays up to that ego as well, you know. And like I said, shedding some of the behavior that gets you into trouble is tantamount to not getting in trouble anymore, you know. And I mean, now he's been in trouble in a strip joint and something, you know, happened there and stuff like that. Okay, fine. So now he's going to maybe not go to strip joints anymore. That's fine. It's not the strip joints. It's not the strip joints. It's not because this could be a regular old bar, and this could have been a tale of an alcoholic drinking, you know, yep. Or it could have been, you know, like I said, gambling. You know, he could be, you know, knee deep in debt at a casino because he can't stop playing.
Yeah,
his ego's not in check. That's what my honest observation says. You know, and when you look at Cejudo, even though Cejudo turns around and tells you he's the best in the world, he wants to be paid like a heavyweight, and you're like, how can you say his ego's in check?
Yeah.
Trust me, Cejudo's ego's been in check in his preparation, in the gym, in hours on the mat, and things like that, and that put his ego in check, you know. And though Jones shares training time and things like that, there's something a little bit different about it. And again, going back even a few years, you know, Jones is not the kind of guy that's like, all right, Jon Jones is training at Greg Jackson's. You know, it's like clear the room. And if they're going to do some stuff and, you know, or if there's, you know, a blip in the media with his name on there, he doesn't want anyone around. He's an ego. He's an ego that wants his privilege. You know, so if here he is, you know, you might be a VIP at the club, you know. Is there a rap song in there somewhere? How can I even be talking about rap at my age? It's embarrassing. But you know what I mean? It's like he could be a VIP at the club. And that's the problem, is that the feeding of the ego he still gets off on it. He still gets off on being recognized and then gets off on not being recognized, gets off on people recognizing how imposing he can be, even if they don't know who he is. You know, so right. I'm not willing. I have a feeling. I'll tell you how I think this is going to play out. I think this is going to get washed under the carpet. I think Jones, at this point, you're dealing with a strip club waitress. So, you know, without making too many assumptions and things like that, if, you know, a couple of $1,000, $30,000 or something like that will make this go away, I think that's probably the best way to go about all this.
And that's probably what we'll
and it'll turn into, or Jones can really say, hey, look, I didn't do any of that stuff. There's camera footage. I had my buddies there. Then let me defend myself.
Yeah, I've said that.
And I'm all right with him defending himself if he's being wrong. Everybody should do that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But he should also look at the fact is, maybe you're there with friends. Maybe you're a VIP at the club. Maybe you weren't. None of that stuff doesn't matter. You were at a place where you left yourself open to this again.
There you go.
Again, you know, this is the thing is, you know, there's got to be a point where, you know, Jon Jones is another guy who's in his circle of trust, right? It's like, you know, he's from New York and now New Mexico, and he came to New Mexico with a privilege already. So, you know, who's there who's really a friend, like someone he can trust, right? His speed dial right at this point is his lawyer, you know, and that's something.
Man,
I don't know, man. It's like, man, yeah, you know, I live my life trying to avoid lawyers, man. It's just like, once you're in that, you're into such a that's competition at its most ugly side of humanity, right? Those dudes defending a guy against another guy or this and that, the other. If he grabbed this girl said, let me go, John, I'm not interested, and he kept grabbing her, then he's wrong, right? And
No
this guy's
question.
defending that possibility. Meanwhile, you're also somebody should have told this guy, dude, you know, no strip joint waitress is ever going to accuse you of touching or fucking with you if you don't go to strip joints. You know what I mean? It's like, stay home, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't get what the allure is to the danger, but I do see that he's not making the decisions that avoid this type of thing, you know, that avoid this type of thing down the line. You know, it doesn't seem to be the part that he wants to stop. He wants to stop the suspensions. He wants to stop, you know, people questioning he's the GOAT. He wants to stop having to be. Here's the other part of it is there's something so goddamn fake about Jon Jones interviews nowadays. You know, he is now a very prepared for the media kind of person. You get no spontaneity, no nothing. And I think that's symptomatic of this whole problem here, too. He hasn't really just come to terms with the fact that, like, John, look, you know, in 5 years, you will not be the best in the world anymore. And there's nothing you can do to stop that. I could show you a friend of mine, you know, I mean, not a friend like Chad. Chad's a friend, but a guy I know named Fedor who went through the same thing. So you can experience the same thing. Go ahead. You know, we'll take you through it the whole time here. That's what's going to happen. There's nothing you can do to avoid it. And then he's not come to terms with that. He's at the top of the world. And he's, you know, all the little things just bounce off of him now. And he's not worried about changing and trying to do it. And the thing is, the fighting still comes easy to him. That's the interesting part as far as that. You know,
what happens when that changes?
Well, you know, has it changed? You know, there was a lot of speculation on the internet. And the fact is, you know, he's coming off a couple of flat fights. Thiago Santos and I forget what the kid with the generic names, with the real generic name.
Smith.
Yeah, Anthony Smith. I'm sorry. It was Anthony Smith for Jon Jones. It was like, oh my God, this is like, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous meeting right here. You know, but everybody using aliases. But I'm just kidding.
Right.
But the point is you could kind of accuse him of a little bit of flat fights. And there's been a lot of talk of what you saw there is Jones off of the roids.
I don't even know about that because you know, we've talked about it before, and I don't believe for a second that Jones has ever been off the juice, and I don't care. But if it's a rule and his opponent can't be on it, then why is it okay for him to be on it? And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to normalize minor amounts of steroids so that fighters can use them so that they can quit canceling fights over it and so that they can quit losing superstars over it. And they're trying to normalize that. And you and I have talked about it before. Why don't we spend the money on checking out fighters' neurological health rather than whether their PP has some chemical in it? You know, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, and I don't think steroids should be illegal. And I think if you're a professional, then you should be allowed to do whatever it is that you can do to be the best you can be, because that's how you're feeding your family. But this isn't about steroids. This is about Jon Jones saying, I can do what I want because I'm Jon Jones. And there's something kind of arrogant about that we don't want to see in our stars. You know, we don't want our celebrities to be that way. And maybe in a way we do. We're kind of attracted to that. But at the same time, I can also see this happening.
That's when
they go through the video, and when they go through the video and TMZ gets it, Jon Jones has got her in a, you know, in a Monteleone, playing around with her on a chair on his lap, and there's no sound there. It's dark, it's sketchy, but there's enough there that it can be incriminating to him, and this could turn into an absolute debacle. I don't think it will. I think you're right. I think it's here's 20 grand, go away. But does that necessarily make it right? And are we at this point victim shaming? And are we saying, you know, she shouldn't have worn that dress? You know, there's also that question to be asked here.
No,
so And I don't want to get into all that. I'm just saying that's going to come up. That's going to come up.
Okay. Did you see any video? Is there a TMZ video?
I have not seen any video of any of it. Okay. But the bar has video of it. Jon Jones said, I have witnesses that were there with me that will say that this is absolute nonsense. But a video is a lot more incriminating than a bunch of your friends saying, no, he didn't do that. So what does the video look like? They're going to have one. Every bar has them. And they're going to have one tuned into the VIP room, almost certainly, where one assumes he would be. Even if he's not a VIP member, you would think he probably is seated in VIP, I assume. I don't know. There's just so many questions, but the bottom line is this. Jones, you've already, when DC stood in the ring and said, get your shit together, get off the couch so we can do this, DC's never going to see that fight because Jones is going to do something to screw it up. And now that he can't take steroids the way he was taking them, I don't know that he beats DC. He doesn't beat him at heavyweight, maybe. Maybe he does. I don't know. Maybe Jones belongs at heavyweight. Maybe that's where he can be. But I have a deeper feeling that Jones is at 205 when he could easily be heavyweight. I believe he's at 205 because I think there's something inside of him that I think he carries a huge anxiety issue that they try to cover up. Greg Jackson pouring the water over him and saying the water's coming down gently and slowly. Those are all meditative techniques to almost be a tranquilizing effect to the subconscious to slow you down and to minimize anxiety after the first round with Anthony Smith. And so I think Jones has an anxiety disorder. I think he probably suffers from depressive issues as well as low self-esteem and narcissism. And I think all of those things combined together when you're the baddest man on the planet are just a cauldron mixed together for disaster and poison instead of stew. That's all I've got to say about it.
Yep, like I said, my prediction is this one is probably going to get swept under the rug. At the end of the day, they're doing in April. It's back in April kind of thing, and Jones is going to throw some lawyers at it. We'll see if more of it comes. There's a lot of speculation, but I think a lot of the good points that we brought up here is that, even if it gets swept under the rug, or even if it turns into nothing, the girl says, he's an ex-boyfriend of mine, and we're kind of, it was nothing. I'm sorry. Even if all is swept under the rug, I still think there's ego questions about where Jones is at this point in his life, and what it's going to wind up is we've already lost years and fights over his careers that he could have had, paychecks in the bank, John, that you lost because you weren't fighting while suspended and things. So now, you're still not avoiding the things that led to those things. It wasn't painful enough because it wasn't like, oh my God, I can't pay the cable bill. So you can pay the cable bill and, you got by until the UFC threw another couple million at him for another fight when he was okay. Well, that multiply that couple million by 2 or 3 when you say you could have had 2 or 3 more fights already booked in your career. So, the Donald Cerrone path, And Cerrone is fun. Cerrone parties. Cerrone does all that. But when it comes down to it, have you ever heard of Cerrone in any type of serious trouble like that?
No. And I want to throw this on the table. Just want to throw it out there to be fair. This could be an issue that's racially charged.
I mean, you never know.
We talked about Randy Cejudo and Cerrone, and they all kind of have one thing in common. They're not black. And so as an African-American male who is in the spotlight, Jones is under extra scrutiny because of institutional racism. And
I don't see how that plays in here. I mean, the bottom line is none of
I'm not saying it does. I'm just saying
none of the other
all of these things could be on the table. All of these things can be on the table at any minute. Apologist for being a misogynist. Apologist for or enabling addiction, apologist for narcissism run rampant, an apologist for suspicion of excluding him due to excluding his problems of race, or that race particularly carries with it as a male, especially as a male. So all of those things could go and might go into this if this blows up. And if this blows up, then the UFC's got a whole different thing on their hands. I hope you're right. I hope it's nothing. I hope so for everybody's sake. But I'm not discounting anything at this point where Jones is concerned. I'm just not. And it's not because I even necessarily believe the story. I think it's probably money grabbing more than anything else. It just kind of has that feel to it, I guess. April, and all of a sudden, hey, I just recognized that guy on TV. Remember when? Yeah, and then bang, something happens. I don't know if that's what happened or not, but just all of it could blow up and be another catastrophe. And I think all of this is based primarily on Jones and his own insecurities and his own self-esteem issues. And I wish that he would drink ayahuasca one time.
Yeah.
And I think that would help him out more than anything else he could do in life. So, John, if you happen to be listening to this, yeah, right. Drink ayahuasca once. Take the plant medicine. That's all I've got, man.
All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about it if anything else pops up in the media.
Till next time. Namaste.